I looked at all these different types of industries, and
hmm
everything kept going back to real estate. And there's the one thing that really appealed to me in real estate is there's no barriers of entry. Meaning, it doesn't matter if you have a 4-year college degree. It doesn't matter if you have, an MBA. You don't need any of that to jump into real estate. If you work your butt off, you can make money.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow Podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host. I'm glad to have you back listening to the show or watching, if that's the case, on YouTube or Facebook or a bunch of other channels. We have an excellent guest today, Bob Lachance. Some of you may recognize his name, and I'll let Bob talk about that here in a minute. But first off, Bob, thank you for joining us. I know you're a really busy guy. You got several companies, and I know how lucky we are. This is a really special podcast event for us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You got it. So, hey, if you could, I'm a huge sports nut, man. In fact, I didn't tell you this before. I was actually at the 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, and actually was at the game where the U.S. beat the Russians. That was a bronze medal, and I saw them also when they beat the Finns for the gold medal. And I got one of Mike Ruzione's, the captain's, one of his sticks, and Jimmy Craig's one of his goalie sticks. So let's just start there. Take us from your background. Where were you before you got into all this stuff dealing with building businesses and real estate investing?
Absolutely. And just a little bit of Mike Ruzioni. He was one of my assistant coaches when I played for Boston University back in the day. So it's kind of funny that
Oh,
we're, fast
awesome.
forward today. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I love these.
yeah.
I love doing this. Yeah.
So I grew up playing hockey, obviously, and I have two older brothers. They both played. My middle brother actually was drafted number 4 in the world, which is pretty cool. So he got drafted by the New York Islanders back in '91. I got drafted in 1992 by St. Louis in the 6th round, not the 1st round, but the 6th round. He was
Yeah.
he was a little higher than me, but it was pretty cool. So I went to Boston University during that time. I actually got drafted before I went to college. Played there for 4 years. I got offered a contract by St. Louis Blues, 2-year contract. It was a minor league plus major league deal. If you get called up, you get obviously X amount of money. If you stay down in the minors, you get Y amount of money. I was fortunate to be able to play one exhibition game. Did not make it to be able to play in the NHL, but it's pretty cool. One exhibition game, but I left. This is pretty interesting. We talked a little bit about a lot of how we don't end up, we don't start real estate investors or agents or investors. We become them, right? So I started as a professional hockey player. And the reason being is because I left 2 classes short of getting my degree in Boston University because I got offered that contract. But we'll get to that in a second. So when I got offered the contract, I jumped in and started playing right away. I ended up playing 4 years here in the U.S. for different teams, Orlando, Indianapolis, a couple different other teams, Worcester, and then went to Europe for 4 years, which is pretty cool. I played hockey in Italy. I know a lot of people don't realize there's actually hockey in Italy, but it was a really cool experience. Also Switzerland and Germany. So had a pretty good run. And then, I had my first child. So I decided, hey, it was either you're going to uproot your family, bring them over there, or, you have to join, the regular world and, hang up the skates and start working. But, it was pretty interesting because that transition for me was tough because if you live in a hockey locker room for pretty much all your life, you're 20 something years in a locker room, you're not talking business. You're not talking, you don't talk about, how to deal with your boss. Yeah. You have to deal with your coaches, which is kind of, pretty much your boss, right? And the GM and all that stuff. And you have your agents and there's a lot of stuff that you have to deal with, but it's different than the real world. So I had no education on the real world. So I looked at all these different types of industries, and everything kept going back to real estate. And there's the one thing that really appealed to me in real estate is there's no barriers of entry. Meaning, it doesn't matter if you have a 4-year college degree. It doesn't matter if you have an MBA. You don't need any of that to jump into real estate. If you work your butt off, you can make money. And if you're listening, you're coachable, and you know how to work as a team. Anybody, it doesn't matter. I don't care what your education is in real estate. You can make money. So that was my big appeal. And then I jumped into my first deal. Actually, I started farming in areas. You could interrupt me anytime you want. Gary, if I keep
No,
just,
no, keep going, man. This is awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
all right. My first deal, actually, when I actually, stuck a flag in the ground, said I'm a real estate investor,
Mhm.
was a rehab. Because what I did was I drove around areas called farming areas, and I looked at properties that were beat up and etc. And I would pick up the phone, and this one happened to be a listed property. So I called the
Mhm.
agent, and again, you have to understand, I knew nothing, zero systems,
Mhm.
zero. I knew nothing, but I did know. I picked up the phone and I called and said, "Hey, listen, what's this property listed for?" They said it's listed for $185,000. It was either 185, 175. This is back in
Mhm.
2004. I got hit in the head too many times. I forget some stuff. So,
Yeah. But your nose is
so
straight, you know? Yeah.
my
Yeah.
nose is straight. My funny story about that. My first pro shift after this, I got a slap shot right between the eyes because I took my
Uh-huh.
mask off because in college you had to wear a mask. Took my
Yeah.
mask off. First pro shift, slap shot right here. So I don't know, 15, 16,
Oh,
15,
wow.
16 stitches right between the eyes. But anyway, let's keep going with this. The first
Yeah.
deal, I ended up, like I said, it was listed at 185. I put an offer on 135. It was a
Mhm.
vacant property, and they accepted the offer. And I was like,
Okay.
what do I do? Again, we didn't have
Yeah.
the coaching. We didn't
Yeah.
have the coaching that we do now. We didn't have podcasts like yours. We didn't
Mhm.
have any of this back in 2004. So I had to find money. I had a little money, obviously, put away from my hockey career. But I also, I got a broker. I had to find contractors. I had to do a scope of work. And back in the day,
Mhm.
I didn't know any of this terminology either. Like, this is, you take your notebook. You're like, well, I think it needs a kitchen. Could we get
Yeah.
away with not putting a roof on? So ended up doing pretty good. I finished the rehab in a month. I got contractors from Brazil. Ended up, working with them for many years later. Anyway, they turned it around within a month. Did an open house. Ended up making
Mhm.
about $32,000 in the first deal, which is pretty cool. And then,
Okay.
um, and then I changed my strategy because that's what you do after you make $32,000. I
Yeah.
I joined my local real estate investment association, and the reason why I did that was because after I was done and I got that check, I looked in the mirror and I said, you know what? I have zero systems. I didn't have any other properties to work on. So I
Yeah.
didn't know, I didn't know what marketing was. I didn't know what branding was. I didn't know what acquisition was. I didn't know any of that. So I needed an area for me to get more properties so I could be a rehabber.
Mhm.
However, I saw a speaker speak on pre-foreclosure, which is short sales, pre-foreclosure industry, which
Mhm.
means property values are higher than, or the debt is higher than the value. So you have
Mhm.
to contact the bank and negotiate with banks. Anyway, I saw a pre-foreclosure speaker speak on this. This is Connecticut Real Estate Association. So I
Yep.
bought his course. And at that point, I'm like, wow, this is something that I could really get into. And again, I didn't
Mhm.
even know pre foreclosure was. I just read his course. I'm like, all right, this is something I can do. So the
Mhm.
next meeting, I went to pretty much half of the association. I said, hey, who is the best person in Connecticut that does
Mhm.
short sales? And they all pointed to the same gentleman. So I went up to him. I said, hey, listen, I'm not looking for half of your company. I'm not looking for any of your company. I'm looking to learn this business and earn while I learn. I'm not looking for a job. He said, you know what? I actually have an acquisition role open. I said, okay,
Mhm.
cool. And I didn't know what that meant. And he hands me a list of pre foreclosure properties of people losing their house. He goes, go door knock
Mhm.
and get me contracts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. So I went from door to door from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. every Monday through Friday. And then
Mhm.
what I would do, that's what that list, what I would do, I'd come home, I'd go to 411.com and try to find a phone number. And then I
Mhm.
would dial till about 7 o'clock until, I had to eat dinner with the family. So that went on for about a year. And then I found another door knocker that would take my spot. And then I moved into the seat of negotiating with banks. So
Mhm.
I learned from my whole thought process was I want to learn from ground up. Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if I make money today. I just need to
Yeah.
know that I could run a business tomorrow. And that was my mindset. Again, not everyone's
Yeah.
in that position. I earned a little bit that first year, like really little bit, enough that I could
Yeah.
survive. But I wasn't looking for that home run because I knew if I learned it, I learned the foundation, I could foundationally, run a business, in a year if
Yeah.
I end up being partners with the gentleman. We end up being 50-50 partners, but I earned it. So I'm big on, earning my keep to be able to get something out of it. So anyway, that was the start of it. I did start about that, talking 100 miles an hour, but I'm on my third coffee of the day.
Did you know that you can participate in class every Monday? We call it Monday Night Live, 7 p.m. Eastern, with me and dozens of other investor agents from around the country, in fact, the world. Every Monday, totally free. No selling, no recruiting, just straight up education on anything and everything in real estate. And we have a lot of good guests coming on once or twice a month, bringing in expertise on subjects like how to buy a house with crypto. Okay. How about them apples? What about AI? How's AI affecting our business? How about the metaverse, blockchain processing? We're already using it in title work. So come on to Monday Night Live. Be ready to take notes and ask questions because it's live and engaging, and you get to participate by asking questions and meeting others. So we'll see you there. Go to realestatewithgarywilson.com, click on the resource tab, drop down, and you'll see Monday Night Live. And in there, you can see one of the most recent classes. But more importantly, you can register for class as many as you want going up to like the end of the year, I believe. So in any case, do that. We'll see you on Monday Night Live. Look forward to meeting you in person. Take care. There you go. No, that's awesome. And I really appreciate you sharing that level of detail because there's so many people that listen. We get emails and things like that and messages online from people. And most of them are new. I mean, they're just trying to figure out what's the next step. So you sharing a story like that gives them real life experience. And one of the things you mentioned was joining a local investor club. And I tell people that all the time. I said, you have to join a local investor club. You're not going to like everybody, but you're going to find people you do like and they like you. And the cool thing is you're going to learn from them. You're going to learn from the experience. And I've written 8 books and created 6 training programs. And I tell people, frankly, I said, look, you're only going to learn so much from me. The way you learn is out there in the field executing. The experience is the best teacher. I know it's a cliche, but there's no better way to embrace and internalize that learning than to freaking just doing it yourself. So you mentioned that, which is a big deal. And the other thing I like about what you're doing is, I did the same thing. I learned about being a businessman, running a business by investing in real estate. Because if you think about it, you've got your inventory or your properties. Your renters are your clients. They're paying you every single month to rent from you, as long as you provide them a good product. You've got all the vendors, you got all the utility people, all the inspector people, and insurance, and it encompasses so many different disciplines. That you have to be almost a jack of all trades, not an expert at all those trades, but to know enough to know all the moving parts and what has to happen first, second, and third. And then when you come to growth phase, you know how to delegate, you know what to tell people, you know what to expect from them, and they'll know it based on your terminology and your methodology. So kind of take us from there. So you're investing now, and I know you've launched a couple businesses too, but tell me about that growth experience. Like, what was the first business you launched, and then just kind of take it from there. I don't want to put any restraints on you. Yeah.
No, not at all. And it's funny too. It's. I think we talked about that. You work for NASA, and you wanted to be an astronaut, but in this business, you never end where you start. It's pretty impressive. Like, if I fast forward today, we were talking a little bit before this, 2024, we've done over, let me just check, 100, I think it was 125 so far, 132 right now, as of
That's
today.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I also have a virtual assistant company like we talked about. So going forward, I also lend money. I have some, rental properties, et cetera. But I didn't start that way. I started on one rehab. So through the process, after I did that rehab, we've done, since then, probably over 1,500 short sale transactions. And then, so 2005 also, and do keep in mind, you don't always win.
Right.
I got involved in a knockdown rebuild back in 2005 where I lost $150,000. That was not fun, but it was a great learning experience and what not to do and how not to look at a shiny object. So I just want to throw that in there because it hasn't been all, rainbows and peaches and cream. You take your lumps too. It's part of the game. So
just like anything in life, it is. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So if I keep going around, this is back in, so 2005, got beat up on that property, but we kept going, of course, doing short sales. And then 2007, actually, let me rephrase this. 2006, I was approached by a real estate education company because we were doing high volume of short sales, and they were specifically in the short sale space. So we worked with that company as coaches while we were investing and while we were doing this stuff for about a year. And then 2007, we got approached by our buddies, the company called Fortune Builders. They ended up, going from, zero sales to over $200+ million a year in sales. They were the biggest in the industry. And they went up to my partner at the time, Pat, and said, hey, you guys, I know you guys are really good at the coaching side of it. We're starting this company called Fortune Builders. Are you guys interested in partnering? And I'm like, we didn't know. I'm like, sure. I mean, I was going to say yes to anything anyway, because it's, I like doing stuff. I like, helping build businesses, etc. And all those guys are football guys. I'm a hockey guy. My partner was a rugby guy. So I'm like, love working with people that work hard and just can, have goals and etc. So end up starting that. My main job was to build the coaching program from ground up and help build the culture. So I focused on that while, again, doing short sales, while doing some flips, all that kind of stuff. And then, and we started this at a tough time. So obviously we know what happened in 09, 10, etc. But as a coaching company, we started flourishing. And then one of the things, and one of the companies I own today, I started looking at everything and saying, all right, how could I help my students do the tasks? Because majority of them, just like a lot of your listeners, they either work part-time or full-time, and they're looking to jump into real estate. One of the challenges I had is majority of our students were like that, and they just didn't have enough time to implement the action items or the tasks I was giving them each week. So I was looking for years on if there's a service or a product, what is out there that could help students. And then 2013, I got introduced to what a virtual assistant was. And I'm like, I'm like, all right, this could be something. This could be the service I've been looking for. So I tested one myself in my own business. I'm like, this is it. But then in 2014, I'm like, a light bulb went on. I'm like, why not start a business? Because this could be something we could offer to our student base that I fully own. So I brought on another business partner at the time, 2014. I tested it for 2 years. And I'm like, wow, this works. So then, kind of went out in the open market and opened it up. And so I was coaching, investing, and running a VA company, a virtual assistant company at the time. And then, so it's pretty interesting. It's just running all those businesses. You really learn how to time block. You really learn how, you got to work with people. Because in essence, I mean, you do the same thing. We're really in a service business because we like giving back. We like teaching. We like seeing people create success in their business. So that's kind of, from that time frame from 04 to about 14, 15, 16. That's what happened with me and my business.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. What's interesting is I think it was around 2009. I was on a conference call with Than Merrill, and I can't remember his right-hand person's name that saved my life right now, but
Paul Lachance.
And I knew Than had his real estate license with Keller Williams Real Estate in Connecticut. I actually taught a class at that market center where he was. But in any case, in 2009, I had a company called Win Realty Advisors, and we were servicing out of one location the entire state of Pennsylvania. And back then, we didn't have reciprocal MLS, but like brokers didn't reciprocate. We didn't have the MLX thing. What we had was called VOW, Virtual Office Website. So Than at first we said, look, if you set up this virtual office website, I'll make sure all your agents get all these leads from all these deals. I said, done. I'll get it all set up. We already knew how to do it. We've already been doing it. And we were selling subscription to the service to his clients. And then what's interesting, I had another guy with me, Dustin Matthews.
I know Dustin.
Yeah. For Dustin Matthews, so Than Merrill was already up and running. He was already flipping homes. He already had a business, but he hadn't done like a big launch. They did this big launch in 2009, and Dustin Matthews actually slept on Than Merrill's couch that night of the launch. And Dustin and I became good friends. He actually became a coach of mine. But it's a small world, and the cool thing is if you do a good job and you don't take the shortcuts that some people take, and you don't screw people over. Everybody helps each other. We all know each other, you know. And if you keep it above level, you'll never have a problem in this world. But there are a lot of people that kind of fizzle out real quickly because they try to take a shortcut, or they don't understand business the right way. They can maybe build the building blocks, but when it comes to being a good community, a good citizen business community, that's where it is. The networking, the masterminding. I mean, I've had a mastermind before I paid $100,000 for. You know, before that,
Yep.
I wouldn't even let myself spend 1,000. And I finally started realizing I'm going to get to hang out with these people who are already where I want to be. Then I'd spend
Yep.
5,000, then 18, then 30,000. This $100,000 one came around, and we rented out a ship to this event. And
Yep.
people said, "We just thought you were a billionaire already." And I'm like, "No, I'm not a billionaire. I'm probably going to be, but like a long ways to go." So it was just really interesting that we tend to be our own worst critics. Entrepreneurs, we had the confidence, or we wouldn't be doing the things we do. But as far as feeling successful, it's like it's always this thing we're going after, and it helps to network and be with other people who are where you want to be, and it has to be an exchange
Yeah.
of value. There's always that relationship there. But if you wouldn't mind, let's go back to you're doing the flipping, you're doing the short sales. You mentioned some lending, and then the virtual assistant company, which I'm really intrigued by because I have three virtual assistants. I've had as many as five at one time. But for me, man, Bob, it was a major game changer for my business because I was able to let go of all the traditional U.S. employee type stuff where
Hmm.
I had MBAs working for me that were making more than I was, and I
Yep.
didn't just have to pay them the salary; I had to pay payroll tax. Then there was unemployment, and then there was, disability, and then there was workman's comp, and I'm like, holy crap! What is all this stuff? Now
Yep.
I have none of that, man. I have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars by going to virtual assistant route. So would you mind kind of let's kind of unwrap that one a little bit
Yeah.
if you don't mind. Like, so you had your own, and you realized you could start a
Yep.
business there. What were some of the steps, and who all can benefit from this? I mean, can they be anywhere in the
Yeah.
world, or they have to be in the U.S.? I mean, I got like a million questions. So so go ahead and
Yeah.
go.
No, no.
Mhm.
That's a good point too, because it's kind of funny because we branched off into medical, not only real estate. Perfect example. So going off
Yep.
exactly what you said, you have dentists, doctors that are looking at it saying, "I can't keep my staff," because what would
Right.
happen is they would show up, they would have to train them. Someone in the front
Mhm.
desk that's doing insurance verifications, prior authorizations, front desk triage, putting all the calls all over the place, and that's when the light bulb went on in that industry. The same thing. It's because we as real estate investors fall into the same challenge. You start looking
Mhm.
at, if you look at what's minimum wage now in Connecticut, it's over $15.69. I mean, I don't know about you, but I can't hire someone minimum wage and they're going to be a very good employee. It's just very
Right.
difficult. I'm in Connecticut. I know, other states are the same or they're going to be at that level. And to hire someone, I'll tell you what they don't have is mostly do not have a 4-year college degree. So
Right.
all my virtual assistants have 4-year college degrees. And then
Mhm.
someone told me this one day, they said, you know what? If you're doing $10 an hour tasks, that means you have a $10 an hour bank account. And I'm like, you know what? 100% correct, because all the stuff we do, yeah, I know it feels good when we check off the list, right? Oh, by the end of the day, you feel way better. But does it
Mhm.
really put money in your pocket by doing the tasks that you could outsource to somebody else for $10,
Mhm.
$11 an hour, whatever that looks like, right? So
Yeah.
and some of the things we looked at. So that's what I realized. I mean, if you look at my business right now, I have acquisition, or I have marketing, branding, VAs that drive in all of my leads to my sales floor here, and then they close the
Mhm.
deals. I also have virtual assistants that work with my acquisition individuals, my dispo whenever we sell them. Also,
Mhm.
disposition transaction coordinating. So there's a lot of stuff like my VAs after after we do this podcast, once it's live, gets sent to our VA team, and then they do all the social media posting. So it looks like, hey, it looks like I'm
Yeah.
doing it or you're doing it, but we don't have to do anything.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I love the fact that you touched on the dentist too, because when I first got started in this business, I was an investor first that decided to get my license because most of the agents weren't trained to help me. They didn't understand the terminology and methodology of investing. The brokers just weren't teaching them. So I thought, I'm just going to get my license. It was
Yep.
comical because my wife would send people to me like, honey, I don't do that. I don't open up doors. I don't do open houses. I don't want anything to do with that kind of stuff. But this local guy heard of me. He was a local guru, taught people how to invest. He invited me to be on his Saturday morning business program. It was on radio. And I knew the
Yep.
program because I listened to it. I said, really, me? He said, yeah, man, you got like 45 units and you're just a regular guy and you're local. And, I just want to interview. And I said, okay. So he called me up. That was Saturday. He called me up Monday. And he said, I sold more programs since I interviewed you than any other time. And I've been doing this for the last, whatever it was, 10 years or something. He said, would you come to one of my classes? Just come at lunchtime, have lunch with some of the guys. I said, sure, I'll do that. Well, that led to me teaching a little bit, not all the time, but I'd come in every
Yeah.
other Saturday or something and teach a segment and have lunch with them. Everybody would, hey, can you be my agent? I'm like, nope, I don't do that. I just got my license for myself. After like 100 times, I'm
Yep.
thinking maybe God's trying to tell me something. So you're gonna love this, Bob. I learned my first lesson in marketing. I went to class and I said, look, average of 25 people. I said, I know you're all going to want me to be your agent. I tell you what I'll do. I'm willing to take out two of you. Well, every hand goes up. I'm like, whoa, I think I can make money doing it, just like you figured out with the VAs. So that's what I started doing. I started working with these guys, and my payment was the commission. I would charge them a minimum. Then I got kind of burned out. I'm like, this is killing me my time here because I wanted I'm still playing sports at the time and coaching my kids. But in any case, fast forward, I built a business out of that, and that's what led to Thea
Hmm.
Merrill reaching out to me was that whole business based on that model. But in any case, um, the dentists were a big part of my business because I think the dental association must be the best association there is because they teach their dentist how to feel, think, speak, and act like business people. Their product, the service is the tip of the iceberg. Underneath that is this business model that they have. And there's some awesome dental podcasts, by the way. Uh, 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 Farron, Howard Farron is one of them. He's out in Phoenix. I've had a couple of them. I'm like, you guys are awesome. So I joined a group up in Toronto, and about a quarter of them were dentists, and they weren't just being a dentist. They were owning the properties that they had to practice on. They
Hmm.
bought multiple practices, and they invested in more real estate. I'm thinking,
Yep.
you guys have it completely dialed in, and I wish all the other associations would follow suit. But back to the point is, through none of that the whole idea of having virtual assistants come into it. So you doing this, I think, plays a major vital role, not just in the success and survival of a dental practice or a chiropractic practice, but really allowing those guys to focus on the upside potential, which is making money, making a profit,
Yep.
minimizing the downside risk, which includes all of your expenses. Big payrolls, the biggest one. So I'm just fascinated that you did that. So um, how can people, I know we're going to probably get short on time here very quickly, but how can people find out more about this? How can they get a hold of you? Is there a website,
Yeah.
um, you know, consultation kind of thing, or yeah?
Yeah, we could do we have some consultations. Go to REVA Global, REVA Global.com. Just check it out. Obviously I
Okay.
do a lot of different business stuff. If anyone has any questions about anything, you can send me directly an email, bob@revaglobal.com. Love to talk
Okay.
business ideas. I'm just like a lot like you, Gary. I love talking business. I love talking about, how we
Yeah.
could help people, etc.
Yeah. So now, the clientele that you serve they can be dentists, obviously, but can they be real estate professionals? Like I train a lot of real estate agents how to work with investors, and one of the things I teach them is I think you should get some VAs. Could that be a group that could utilize your services too, and the investors too, for that matter?
Yeah. So I have a mix of around 500 plus clients that are investors, agents. We have
Hmm.
attorneys, we have mortgage brokers, we have marketers, anything under the umbrella of real estate professionals and dentistry. You could do anything. We have another company. We actually have a big company. It's a publishing company that
Hmm.
outsources to us, and we do a lot of work behind the scenes. Whether it's invoicing, billing, we have property managers that use us. One of our biggest clients, I think, is over
Hmm.
20 of our virtual assistants. So, anything. Think about that. If you're that you own properties, and if you're
Yeah.
leasing properties and you're the property manager, that's just the worst job I've ever seen. I mean, for me, we sold,
Yeah.
what do you sell? We sold majority of our doors back when COVID hit, when the prices went through the roof. We're
Yeah.
rebuilding today. So we have 13 properties right now in Jacksonville. We're starting to buy more up here. But
Good.
it's pretty interesting, that every time I was talking to one of my buddies who sold his property management company in Florida, this is 2 days ago, and he said, Bob, he
Yep.
goes, in the property management world, he goes, when your phone rings, it's always a problem. Like, yep,
Yeah.
that's why you outsource the VAs. Outsource the
Yeah.
VAs. Yep.
That's funny. I one of the businesses I built was a property management business. It really, I just,
Yep.
what happened is I built a team for my own properties, but I had 100,
Yep.
several hundred units at the time. And then but the clients I was serving, like the dentist, for example, and engineers was another big group. They would always ask me, "Hey, can you just take care of my properties?" And I'm like, "No, wait, see all this gray hair? That's not fun. Nobody ever calls you saying, 'Hey, Garrett, I'm just so glad you're my property manager.' No, they're calling you because the roof's leaking, the water tank went. I mean, the
Correct.
neighbor's dog's
Problems.
barking is just, yeah." So what I did was I incorporated it, and I took my 8 best clients and said, "Look, I'll do it just for you guys." Another lesson in scarcity and marketing, So I brought in, it was like 40 units on top of my 250 or something, and
Yep.
it worked really well. I was like, it's pretty easy, man. So I just scaled it, went to 700 units in 3 years. We never spent a dime on advertising,
Nice.
and eventually sold that business. But the thing is, if I'd had virtual assistants doing what even half the office staff was doing,
Yep.
I could have cut my payroll easily in half, you know?
100%.
So, in any case, hey, now, by the way, for clientele, like on our team, we serve clients in 13 countries outside the US, of course, Canada being one of them.
Mhm.
But can those people, like in Israel, who are investing here in the States, can they also utilize their virtual assistants? Probably doesn't matter where they are, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. All my virtual assistants are out of the Philippines. So like I said, I started this company back in
Yeah.
2014, 10 years ago. So, yeah, you could use, doesn't matter where. It's the same thing. I mean, look what happened with COVID. You
Yeah.
look at COVID has opened everyone's mind now to say, hey, remote work, that's normal now.
Hmm.
So, and I was doing this before COVID, and it was more of a harder sell. Well, how do I know they're going to do their job? How am I going to do this? Now that people have that experience here in the United States, or obviously the whole world with the remote work, it's very normalized now. So it's an easier kind of conversation.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Any final words of wisdom, thoughts you just said maybe you learned from your granddad, or maybe something you learned in sports that you apply to business, like a lesson that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yeah, I would say, and I was talking, I can't remember who I was talking to, but just looking at real estate, and you actually touched upon it. Real estate's a long game. So it's
Hmm.
not where you start, it's where you finish. And you will learn so much. And I promise, wherever you are today in real estate, it's not going to be the same when you finish. So
Yeah.
just be open, just be aware, and again, not shiny object syndrome at all. It's just the path of real estate takes you in a different direction. So, for instance, if I'm a dentist, let's say I'm investing in an apartment unit that you have, right? Gary,
Yeah.
let's assume that you're doing a syndication. I don't know. You still
Hmm.
have X amount of money. I guarantee you're going to meet somebody else who is in that same syndication that you may have an opportunity then to be a direct lender, and now you're
Hmm.
lending to them to be a private money lender. So my point, I was just using that as an example because that just happened to us. I have a couple of dentist buddies that not only use our VAs but also said, "Hey,
Hmm.
I'm looking to buy real estate." So
Yeah.
you're going to be able to get those opportunities within that, and knowing you're not going to end up where you start is very, very important.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. That's such a vital lesson. It just goes to show you, um, always have a vision, always set your goals, have plans you can execute. But along the way, you're going to take twists and turns. You always end up ahead if you just stick with it, if you just don't give up. But the key thing is to have one eye on today and one eye on tomorrow. Because if you don't do both, you're going to miss opportunities. And when you're present in the moment, sometimes those are the best opportunities. You have the best aha moments. If you're always in the
Correct.
future, you're going to miss today's opportunities. So, guys, keep that in mind, everybody listening. And thank you for listening, by the way, and for watching. If you're watching this on one of the video channels, and if you can leave a review, hopefully, especially you sports nuts like me, I mean, leave a good review for Bob. We love your reviews. It doesn't cost anything. We do this as a community service, and it's fun for us. I get to meet people like Bob. I mean, It's a wonderful life. And if you ever want to do this, just let me know. I'll show you how to do the podcast world too. So, but thank you, Bob, for joining us. Thank you, listeners. God bless you and all your loved ones. And we will see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.